Section 3B.
Okay, I'll pull it up and read it to you. That's all I can promise.
Call the regular City Council meeting on March 2nd, 2022 to order at 7 p.m. If you join me in pledging the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Copeland,
Here.
Tom Baylor,
Here.
Kathy Sherman,
Here.
Jeff Guard,
Here.
Melina Meyer,
Here.
Ann Schaefer,
Here.
David Allison,
Here.
and David Gleason.
Here.
That is all of council.
Approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Use your mic, please.
Second.
Okay. Any modifications to the agenda? All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Okay, agenda is approved as submitted. I think, Jeff, I don't think you're muted there. Does council have any conflicts of interest or ex parte communications to disclose? Okay, seeing none. Communications by and petitions from visitors, guest speakers. Would anybody like to speak? Audience comments. How about that? On agenda items. Anyone in the audience like to speak? Okay, seeing none. Chairpersons and representatives of boards and commissions. CCMC Authority Board. We have a report this evening.
Hi. Yeah, hi, this is Hannah Sanders. I'm here.
Hi, Hannah. Go ahead.
So we are just finishing up our 2021 audit submission, and soon we will start our cost report. Last year was very good for us. When we exclude the CARES funding, we still had a positive year, so that's exciting. The year started off with lower volumes, but January didn't celebrate that positive revenue, but we're expecting that to turn around this month. We were able to file our first phase of the CARES, or the Provider Relief Fund, reporting. We do not have any repayment obligations. That's also a big positive for the hospital. And our final big positive is that we've expanded our rehab services. I don't know if anybody has had an opportunity to come into our building for rehab, but it's located upstairs where the admin office used to be. It's an excellent new area. Expanding this has also increased our revenue. We've been able to bring more patients into our swing for inpatient rehab, and it's really helped the hospital a lot. So we're excited. We're having an open house at the end of this month and hope that community members can come in and see on March 24th, our new space for rehab, and meet some of the new providers that we've added over the last 2 years with COVID when people weren't able to get into the hospital. I'm available for any questions.
Okay, any questions, council? Okay, well, thank you for the report, and good news on a good year and new services. School board.
I think they're meeting tonight.
Meeting, right?
Yeah, that's right. We have a meeting this evening. Okay, and don't have a student council representative report, so there's 2 items on the consent calendar. So will the council there? Anyone want to set one of those items aside? Okay, hearing none, roll call vote, please.
David Gleason,
Yes.
Jeff Guard,
Yes.
Melina Meyer,
Yes.
Kathy Sherman,
Yes.
Tom Baylor,
Yes.
David Allison,
Yes.
Ann Schaefer.
Yes.
The consent calendar is approved.
Okay, and the minutes were in that consent calendar. Consideration of bids. We do have one item, the award of the contract for engineering services, design review, grant administration, and geotechnical study for South Harbor rebuild on page 4.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Ellison.
I move to direct the city manager to negotiate a contract with R&M Consultants to provide engineering services for design, review, geotechnical support, and grant administration for a sum not to exceed $664,000 or $158 and 0 cents, I guess. 158.
Mr. Mayor, I got a question.
Second, Sherman.
Okay, we have a motion, Ellison, second, Sherman. Discussion, Gleason?
I just had a question. Sam was going to report on this, I thought, and it would have been nice maybe to hear that before we,
Before you discuss it,
yeah.
is that do we have a report available or?
Yes, Sam can share with you a bit more detail on this and answer any questions you all have.
Okay.
Okay, so this contract we have been talking about for the last couple reports with Mark. This is an engineering firm to help us through the entire project process, starting with the RFP, helping us. That's the design review. So
Just a second, Sam, sorry. See, someone online is, doesn't have their phone muted. It might be you, Tom, I can't tell.
No, it's not me.
Jeff? Are you muted?
I think there are now.
Okay, there we go. Go ahead, Sam, sorry.
No, thank you. It's distracting. So the design services is to help us write the RFP so that we get it correct with the technical things. Marine engineering is a very technical field, calculating weights and floats and lengths of ramps and those kinds of things is a very technical aspect. Mark is an amazing project manager, but he is not a marine engineer. And then they will also support us through the proposals, verifying calculations within the proposals, evaluating proposals on, merit and how well they're written and the reality of their proposals. The grants administration is my favorite part because they are going to help us facilitate and adhere to the multiple grant funding sources that we have and the multiple steps that we have to take before we can even get into grant agreements, and how we have to, a very technical word, finagle that all these coordinating steps and get grants signed and money released and NEPA in and everybody happy. And they will also help to make sure we're following the procurement rules, such as Buy American Steel, minority contracts, all those kinds of very important things for federal grants. And then the geotech work is, they're actually going to do geotech work in the harbor. They're going to produce a report with data, tables and things for the RFP, and that makes the RFP process, the proposals that'll come back much tighter. They're not drilling holes in an unknown bottom. They have an idea of what they're getting to, so they're not going to pad their proposals in case they hit bedrock or some random weird layer under the harbor. So that's what these guys are for. And there is 13 people working for us on this contract out of the company. It's a large company out of Anchorage. I've worked with them in the past. They did the Gibby Cove water line relocation for the culverts, that state contract. So yeah, I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Councilman Allison?
So we've sent an RFP for this.
Yes.
Is it?
Yes.
How many responses did we get
2.
back? Just 2?
Yep.
Okay, and Mark has reviewed
Oh, yeah.
this and he's good.
Oh, yeah.
Thinks that's
We
reasonable.
grilled them already.
You think that's a reasonable rate?
Yeah, he's good with the dog. We talked about it. We've, talked to them about it, negotiated a little bit.
Okay.
Well, not negotiated, but talked to them about the tasks that we had in mind.
Other questions, council?
I don't have any questions. I wanted to hear what you had to say before we
Okay.
went any further with this.
Okay,
Baylor.
Councilman Baylor.
Yeah, what legal team is writing these contracts?
You were actually really loud, but it was just a little garbled, Tom, your question.
Okay. What legal team
Legal team.
are writing these contracts?
City staff, city attorneys.
Okay, that's my concern anytime we get a city attorneys involved. We've already heard from Mark how important it is to have qualified attorneys write these contracts. And I have absolutely no faith at all in our city attorneys, and it's been proven time and time again over previous projects.
I will just say this is a standard template that I have used. I used it for LT2, used it for a lot of the COVID stuff. But the design build contract is a unknown contract for me. We're working through that. This is not design build. This is a standard. Just for information.
Right, I appreciate that, but moving forward, I think council needs to have that discussion on who we use. Also, the geotechnical did not go well when we built the city hall there. How do we make sure that we don't end up in the same boat, costing us a lot of money again with these guys?
Well, we reviewed their resumes. Curtis, Mark has talked with the geotech person's name is Travis. Mark has some geotech experience. I don't think there's ever 100% guarantee because you're not drilling a hole in every inch of the harbor. They have done statistical analysis to calculate the number of holes they're drilling and the tests they're taking. They've also looked at the North Harbor. When the state did the North Harbor, we got the geotech work for that. And we have the pile drive records for that, which have also given to them, although that is the north side, so it's a little bit different. I can't guarantee you anything. I wish I could, but I feel good about this, about Travis and his skill set.
Okay, thank you. I guess that goes along the lines of the lawyer looking at it. Are these people licensed? Gone through their license, but do they have a bond? If they are in error, do they just go whoop and walk away and we end up eating all the costs like we did on the Civic Center? So those are just some of my concerns. I'll support this, but those are just some things to be thinking about.
Okay.
Councilman Sherman.
Councilman Sherman.
So just to follow up on Councilman Baylor's comments, does this contract come back to us after or for review at any point in time?
Does the contract come back to review?
Yes.
No.
We
Well, yes.
Can I just, we typically don't bring the contract itself, the legal document, to council for approval. We ask for approval of the, as this is now with the MOU, with a cost dollar not to exceed. If you wanted to review the contract and had concerns or questions about that, it hasn't been part of the process to date. But if that is something you guys feel that you want to weigh in on, we'd need to know now.
It's also going to cost time.
No. Sorry, Sam, I'm so sorry. I just wanted to ask about the process, and no, I don't have a problem with that, so thank you.
Okay, other, Councilman Allison.
Does our, I know in our code, it requires council to approve all contracts.
And this is the process
this-
that's underneath that section of code.
Does this qualify as that?
Yes.
Yes, this is how it's laid out in code.
Okay.
Other questions, comments, discussion, council?
Is this Councilmember Myers?
Councilmember Meyer.
I just had a question if the Harbor Commission had weighed in on this at all, because it is coming out of the Harbor Reserve.
No.
Don't.
Does that answer your question, Councilman Meyer? Okay, Councilman Allison?
The Harbor Commission has not,
Oh, wait a second.
My
But-
question.
but Tony
Okay.
has, correct?
Oh, yeah, Tony is totally involved in but we haven't taken this process that we use in front of you to approve the not to exceed price to this harbor. I mean, that's not,
It's not their wheelhouse.
thank you. Yes, but Tony has to gets to sit with us in all the meetings and talk about all the stuff. He's involved in every step of this. Me and Curtis and Tony are the city team that's working this process through with support from Helen.
And if I may, I want to just share that we're city, you all are going to be seeing a lot more of these rather large contracts. We have $32 million already committed, in hand, committed to this project. So we're going to see a lot of these large sticker items, and in some ways they're rather terrifying. But we are following exactly the process and that code requires. And while the numbers are big, the due process that we go through, the review, the solicitation of RFPs and all that stuff is being followed to the letter. I have every confidence, not only in the team, but in the process. And we'll be bringing these large contracts to you, knowing that we've gone through a lot of due diligence to get it to a place where you guys will be happy with the results, if not slightly nervous.
Councilman Allison?
Yeah, do we, I know we know how much money we have, at least at this point in time, and do we do a budget for this project, or do we need to amend our budget, or how do we budget for this so that we know when we're spending these 600,000 or $1.5 million or whatever it is that it's budgeted for?
Well, I think, and Sam can answer this, but I will say this, is that right now we're doing a lot of preliminary work to get us to the place where we can then know how much these things are going to cost. We have estimates, but there's a lot of work that has to be done to lay that foundation for the project itself and for people to actually respond to a firm RFP and say, okay, well, this is what it's going to cost to build. Our hope is the numbers in our head right now are in the ballpark. But as you all heard earlier, 8 months ago when we submitted the raise application, the project was 40% cheaper than it is now. So there's a lot of unknown, and we are scrambling to get more resources, and the team is working really hard to try to figure out ways that they can cut costs of the project without undermining the intent of the project, which is to rebuild the whole South Harbor. So
Were you wondering about Tony's depreciation fund? We call it, that's what we call it. So right now, we're taking out of Tony's depreciation fund.
Taking it out of our sweep account.
That's finance. I don't have to draw the line there. But I have been tracking what we're using out of Tony's fund. I can check with Barb and maybe Monica on that side of, was it actually put into a GL? I mean, it has an account. I'm not really great on that finance side, especially when it comes away from the operation versus the revenue, like water, sewer and stuff. So, but I can talk to Barb and see what we have, if that's what you were more
I think that
for.
one thing is we do not have a final budget because the budget we had is no longer actual.
I recognize that, but so is our regular budget. It changes all the time, but we need to, at some point in time, get these numbers out of our head and onto a piece of paper somewhere,
Yeah.
even if they're going to change.
They're definitely on paper.
Yeah.
It's just every time we look at them, they morph into something different. So
We're just spending unallocated money right now is what we're doing. And at some point in time, we need to have the revenue side of that in a budget and appropriate an appropriation side of that budget.
And the sticky wicket at this moment in time is that all of our fund sources have things that we must do in advance before they'll release. So the RAISE grant has to have all the geotech and all those sorts of things completely done before they'll let us access those resources. The state money, we have to get the bond released, and that's starting and we'll be releasing in the late fall. So there's a lot of things that we have to get going, and that's why we're tapping into the harbor reserve account, because we don't have access to the 30 million or so that we've been committed to get.
Okay, Counsel, we're kind of broadening the conversation, but to the R&M contract and geotechnical work and engineering, sounds like project management kind of as well. Engineering management.
I would call it engineering support, design support.
Okay. Councilman Allison?
Just one more question. I recognize that we have to come up with money ahead of time before we get our money, but does this contract, is the intent that it will be repaid with part of that 32 million, or that this gets added to that 32 million for the project?
This will be added to it.
So we're going to just reduce the depreciation fund by
Correct.
this amount? Okay.
And a big portion of that is due to the fact that the project is now around $40 million instead of 32. So we again have a gap, and we're doing our best to find money under rocks.
Okay.
Okay, any further discussion, Council? I haven't heard any opposition to the motion yet, so.
Yes,
Councilman Guard.
got a question. Yeah. Thank you. So the only two decent-sized chunks of money we've got to spend before we can get documents to give us a budget on this, we can go out for proposal to get a budget on this, is the money for this contract and the money for our project management contract, right?
Solstice.
Right, well, there's a second contract in the packet tonight. And on that second contract, there's a total of what is left in Tony's depreciation fund after all of the work that we have had done since the beginning of the, since I guess just 22. Feels like it's been 20 years, but since 22. And so we've done some preliminary engineering questions and environmental work for the grant. For example, we had the Solstice write us the environmental section so we could explain intelligently where we were at in the NEPA process, because it's a very convoluted, complicated process. So we have spent more than just this contract and the project manager contract, but the total that is in the Solstice write-up includes all of that for what's left in the depreciation fund. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that'll get us to the point where we can sit down and make a budget for this and understand where we're at. So when the contract come up, we'll have a clue as to what we're doing.
Well, probably the next step is to get the RFP out and get back proposals, because part of the magic of a design build proposal is that they can help us figure out ways to be within our budget that we have. So I think the next step, with many things going on simultaneously to secure the grant agreements, will be to get the RFP out and get those proposals back so that we have a good concept. I mean, you know, it's so volatile with supply and materials right now. So, and then we also have that risk with the NEPA work. You know, we have to have that in place. We can't no in-water work until that Mr. Glayson's favorite permit is in place for
Sea lion hazing?
yeah.
I'm your man.
So yeah, so those are things we have to get done before, which is why Solstice is in this contract, is in this packet.
No, I understand. I'm not complaining about dollars or any of that. I'm just trying to figure out a process in big chunks. So this is all that we've got to do so we can go out for an RFP, so we can get an idea of the actual dollars that we're going to be spending on this. Right?
As far as I know, yes. I think we have all the pieces in place now.
And this is a big chunk for us to bite off, and we're all doing the best we can. But for our understanding, the money we're approving for contracts tonight, plus what we've already done before, this will be what we need to do to get the RFP out so we can get some proposals.
Yeah, we will have one more. Okay, so we will have one more contract for the project manager. He is not. He was a short-term. He is a short-term contract to get us rolling. So there will be one more.
Okay. Okay. That's my questions answered. Thank you.
Other questions, council? Okay, I didn't hear anybody in opposition, so
Maybe we should do a roll call.
yeah, let's do a roll call with so many people online.
Melina Meyer,
Yes.
David Allison,
Yes.
Tom Baylor,
Yes.
Jeff Gard,
Yes.
Kathy Sherman,
Yes.
David Glayson,
Yes.
Ann Schaefer.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, reports of officers. I don't have much to report tonight. Fantastic election turnout. It's great to see that. City manager's report.
I have a few things. To follow on the conversation we're having right now around the harbor, we are seriously looking for additional revenue. I've spoken with the governor's office. They're going to probably put out another GO bond, which would require citizen approval in the fall. But that allows us to potentially get on the governor's list and ask for a larger sum of money to help fill the gap that we have right now between the original budget we had for the project and the inflated budget that is now in front of us. So that is a going thing. I spoke with John Bitney about possibly coming back and helping us, but he has taken a job with the Senate Finance leadership, and will be in Clerk Bishop's office, which is great news for us because he will be in a position to help at least give us feedback and input on the process that will be going on in the Senate and the House to get a capital budget together. So he'll be giving us guidance on that and has already helped a bit with that. I likely will go down to Juneau in the next couple of weeks just to make sure that we have that secured. And Bitney is going to give guidance on possible other lobbyists that may be of use to us, but suggested a first step was that we have FaceTime in Juneau. So I'll keep you posted on that. Someone mentioned the stairs. I hope all of you noticed that the stairs between the lower harbor area and up here on First Street is going in. And Sam, I think, when are we looking at those being done in the next week or two? 3, 4? Okay. Yeah, but for the season, we will have pedestrian access, easy access without having to circumnavigate the block. So we're really looking forward to that. So bring cookies or a hot chocolate to the lads out there doing the work. And we can thank Dawson again for that. Update at the last meeting, there was a question around sales tax and the exemptions. We're gathering information for all of you, and we'll have that as well as a financial report and analytics on our finances at the next council meeting on the 16th. So we're gathering the information that you all have requested on the finance side. I wanted to bring you up to date that the fire department is putting in place a safe buildings program. As you know, we added a person to the staff, and they are going to be offering home safety checks, doing building safety checks for first responders so that they know what they're getting into. And we'll be doing a lot of work to kind of help people understand how to make sure that their building is safe and that our first responders are safe when they need to respond to an emergency in different facilities around town. So be on the lookout for that. We'll put out a public notice on that, and there'll be information that will be sent out to property tax payers here in the city. And we'll be hitting all the mailboxes so that renters and others can know how to respond to that program. And let's see. I think that's it for me at this moment.
Any questions, Council? Councilman Gleason.
Yeah, does that any of that training, you said they're getting training, is any of that for boats? Fire department?
They're actually going to go to anybody who would like a facility checked, and I'm sure they can. I don't see Paul here. Boats could be included if people would like to have it looked over. They're not going to do any engineering, but they'll make suggestions and say, I noticed this, I noticed that, you might want to consider this. Have you checked the expiration date on your fire alarms and these sorts of things? So there'll be a checklist as well. So I mean, certainly it's transferable to any facility where human beings might be inside and habitate and might need to have egress or responders come to visit.
Okay.
Questions online, Council?
Yes, Councilman Baylor.
Councilman Baylor, then Allison.
So as we move forward with this harbor project, what is your intentions as far as hiring the legal team to write these contracts? We've heard from Mark that it's pretty important that you get legal advice that knows what they're doing and has worked with these types of things before. So I'd like to know what the city's manager's intention is.
Well, the city manager's intention is to make sure that we have a contract that protects our interests and holds any contractor to the letter of the law. Certainly, if there's concern about specificity around the contracts as it relates to the harbor type of projects, we'll make sure that the right people are in the room. I will say that Holly is our city attorney, but she has a large team of attorneys behind her with the firm that she works for. There's labor specialists, there's contract specialists, there's oil and gas specialists. So they have a large bench, if you will, of specialists that could assist at any level with our city needs. So, obviously, I will make sure that we have the right contracts in play. I'm sure Mark will guide us on some of the contract issues that he has had that might cause problems for folks, but I don't foresee a problem with our firm providing the appropriate level of expertise.
Well, that may be because you haven't been around long enough to see them enact like some of us have. And yes, I know they have other legal experts, so to speak, in their firm. They did not do us any favors when they built City Hall. I would strongly oppose using the city attorney. I would get somebody that Mark has worked with before. So I guess this will be something we take up with the next seated council.
Obviously, council can direct me to do whatever you feel is in best interest of city, and I will comply.
Councilman Allison?
Yeah, I tend to agree with Councilmember Baylor. We, several times we've asked for RFPs for attorney, and, there's any number of examples that you can point to where we didn't get the best of advice from our attorney team. But my main question is, so you're gonna come with some the analysis of everything? Does that include options for the additional interest from the permanent fund to do? Or I want to know that because I want a resolution before I get off council to put that back in the permanent fund principle. And if we need to take it out of there by the normal process. But I can say that during pending agenda, but if that's part of what's coming to us next meeting, we don't need to do that. But
So what you're going to get is an analysis of every single investment, from the fee schedules to the return on investment comparison document that shows how it rates and relates to other city governments and what to expect on return on investment. So that is the analytics. On the investment side, on the permanent fund side, I will have the earnings and how they've gone over time, how they've been reinvested in the fund or expended where there's been draws, so you can see how those resources have been utilized. I will have a couple of suggestions for you guys to consider to wrap into that conversation around the use of permanent fund earnings. And I'll let you know right now that I have no interest in using that for a plug for general operating budget. My thinking at this moment in time is anticipating and looking forward to bond debt reimbursement that we are going to have, and matches that we are going to be required to pay, like for 2nd Street and White Shed Road. We have some fairly significant matches. Is that a potential source of funds to repay those capital expenses that city has, or any other way of looking at that? But we are going to need to identify some fairly substantial resources on those 2 road projects. So there'll be a lot of discussion items, but I'll have data for you. I'll have suggestions for you. I'll have problems that need to be resolved. And there'll be, I'm sure, a robust conversation. So I'll make sure you have everything you need to make those decisions.
yeah, I appreciate that. And the permanent fund should be used for capital projects like that when we can leverage 100,000 to get 8 million. I mean, that's that makes sense to do that. But I think personally it should come through the normal getting it out of the permanent fund process and not just a simple majority vote to leave it in the general fund. I don't want to leave that 400,000 just in the general fund for spending by the 4 people that might be sitting at the table at that time that want to spend it on something. I would rather it go through the permanent fund process. So I would like to see at the next meeting as part of that, whatever it takes to move that into the permanent fund, because that will be my last meeting as a counselor. And I would like to put my 2 cents into, to put my vote into getting that back to the permanent fund.
Okay, and I'll make sure that all of the money, how it's gone, because I know there's concern that we've been spending principal for operating expenses on a regular basis. I'm not seeing that, but I'm definitely seeing where there's been draws from the permanent fund to pay for things like school and others, hospital things. So I'll make sure you have all that data and you can use that to inform your decisions.
Council, other questions for manager's report? Okay, clerk's report.
So I'm not feeling great tonight, and I'm kind of nasally. I asked Councilmember Allison, because he was here early, if he could just give the rundown on the election, and then I can answer questions, if everybody's okay with that.
Hearing no objection?
Yeah, I guess 820 something votes were counted yesterday, which included over 200 early ballots, and the absentees that had come in, 30 something of those.
41 of the 59 that were mailed.
So we still have 18 absentee ballots that have 2 weeks to get here in the mail. Should have been postmarked by yesterday. And there's 5 question ballots that they're still doing research on to see if any of those or some of those will count. So those will be counted on March 16th, and our March 16th meeting will certify those. I think you count those early in the day, right?
Correct. At 9 o'clock, the election board will meet to count those.
Yeah. So I think all of the other positions were, the 23 votes aren't going to make a difference on who won or not. So those are all set. I don't know if we need to, for this meeting, read it. Those are all posted on the city webpage, I think, aren't they?
Yeah. Yes. Yes, they are.
So appreciate all the people that came out. If at least, would we say 10? If at least 10 of these 18 and 5 ballots get counted, it will be the largest general election that we've had in the last, I don't know how many that was, 20 year?
Yeah, that was like 12 years of data that I gave. So yeah, it's a big number.
And there was only one that was larger. I think we had 870 some votes in a special election in 2014. So pretty good turnout. It's a really good turnout. I was glad to see that, and I hope that that engagement shows that we'll show with our guests and our audience here and at the school board that people will stay engaged and keep coming and giving their input, because none of us can be everywhere at every time, and if the citizens don't give us their input, then council doesn't get that input. So they need all the input they can. So anyway, as far as the election goes, that's where we're at. 18 and 5 left to count, so potential of 23 votes are out there. I think the radio has that a little bit wrong, and the newspaper had that a little bit wrong. I think they added the 18 and 23 together to get 41 or something like that, but there are only 18 absentee ballots left to count and 5 questioned. That's the total number of votes out there. So as far as the clerk's report, I think that's everything about the election, huh?
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Okay, anything else on the clerk's report? Nothing else, Susan, just the election, right?
Oh, yes, that's,
Okay,
assessment notices will be in the mail in about a week, I think.
I do have a question
any,
for the,
Councilman Ellison?
I do have a question for the clerk or manager, I guess, or I guess it'd be the clerk. Are we intending to go out for an RFP this year for appraisal services, or a formal RFP, not an informal one like we did last year?
Helen and I have been talking about it. I think that's been told to me. I'm not sure exactly how to do it just because there are only the few firms in Alaska who do it. So if I'm going nationwide, that's kind of a big undertaking. And I've been trying to do some research on some firms that do it, electronically really, but who do it using GPS and that kind of thing. And I just want to talk to some people in Alaska who maybe are using that or aren't using that to see if it's practical to be done here.
Well, for 2 years, we've been asking for it, and I think it needs to get done. So we need to get an RFP out, and it needs to happen in time this year to make a decision before next year. And that's not saying that the people doing it now aren't going to get the winning bid, but certainly should be going out for RFPs for that. So.
Okay. Any other council questions on any of the reports? Mayor, clerk, manager? Okay, hearing none. We have the correspondence in the packet. We have the U.S. Army Corps public comment period on Shepherd Point Road modifications. And then we have notice of online public meeting for 2nd Street reconstruction project. That is a virtual meeting that public can attend. The information is here in the packet, and that's March 7th. So that would be what?
Before March 7th.
It says accepted through March 7th.
Okay, accepting comments through March 7th. Okay. Any comments on correspondence, council? Okay, ordinances and resolutions. We have ordinance number 03-22-03, a resolution of the Council of the City of Cordova, Alaska, designating improvement projects. Capital improvement projects. It's a will of council.
Well, to talk about it, I'll move to approve.
Second, Sherman.
Have a motion, Allison, second, Sherman. To your motion, Councilman Allison?
Yeah, I'm not sure that, with the, I suppose until all of these things are paid for and done, we want to leave them on the capital project. We don't have all the money for the South Harbor. I don't know. I haven't heard much discussion about anything different wanting on there. 2nd Street is still 5A, but is that a done deal? Should that stay on there? That doesn't need any more money. I don't know. Manager?
I think right now, because we haven't started it, we do have a match requirement, and there's a few other things that we've left it on because while it's in the planning phases and it's a commitment on this part, it isn't yet done. There are other things that, like the South Harbor replacement. We again left it on because we're still looking for funding and resources and still in the works. So there are projects on there that are further along than others, and others that are still sort of in the dream stage, but definitely seem to be community commitments, priorities.
At this point in time, does this list make a whole lot of hoo-ha? Because we're already, they're already doing public hearings on the state budget.
All of this actually is important to have in front of the state in our CAPSIS program. And if you'll notice on page 21, there's a priorities, capital projects priorities, has a little bit more detail about these various projects. This is what is submitted to the state. Again, anticipating that federal dollars are going to be, the infrastructure dollars are going to be driving through the state. And we want to make sure all these projects are on the table so that if resources are available through the state, that we have access to them.
But this list, what's here before us is already at the state.
Yes.
With the backup material, that's already at the state.
Yep. But I will, true confessions, the appropriate way of handling this would have been to have you approve it before I did that. But the timing was off. So this is in front of you, and this was submitted to the state 2 weeks ago. And we can undo if there's any changes you guys want to make as a body, but we couldn't miss the deadline.
Yeah. Council did look at them last December and kind of wanted, we did review this list, I think, and they said, go ahead and move forward with it before the.
Yeah, I'm not questioning that. I'm just
reminding that.
saying, yeah, we don't necessarily have to pass this every time it comes up before council unless there's specific changes that people want, but.
The state does ask, and there's a box to click with every single one of these projects. Has this been vetted by your governing body? And so at this moment in time, there are projects on this list that I don't feel I have appropriately received guidance from council on. And so the box is unclicked.
Okay. Further discussion, council? Any items that we've left off here or might want to include, or any further discussion?
Mayor, Council Baylor.
Councilman Baylor.
Councilman Sherman?
Councilman Baylor, then Sherman.
Yes, a project that I'd like to see on here is getting clean drinking water out to the 6 Mile area. I would think with all the infrastructure money, that would probably get somebody's attention, bringing clean drinking water. But we do have some issues out there for the people, arsenic and other things. So I don't know how the rest of council feels, but I think that would be an important step if we could at least get a substation or a place where people could get clean drinking water and then eventually maybe run it out to the home. But getting it out to 6 Mile would be a huge improvement.
So just looking at the list, Councilman Baylor, we have upgrade community water supply. And on these other priorities, we have sub-bullets. So maybe that could be like a sub-bullet A, 6 Mile expansion, I guess, or extension.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. I mean, it wouldn't be hard to make a really strong argument for the need for clean water out there.
Yeah, I know what it costs to run a well and a water softener, and so I'd be a vote in favor.
So we'd be putting a 2A
6 Mile
extend water line to 6 Mile or whatever mile that marker is. Is that what
That's what I'm hearing. Yeah.
So is that a motion to do that, Tom?
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion, a second to amend the list. I guess just for efficiency, is there any other councilman that would like to add any other items, and maybe we can consider them in group or in block? Councilman Sherman and then Ellison.
This Councilman Sherman. Oh.
Sorry, Councilman Sherman. Yeah, I really appreciate the detail that the manager put for us into this packet. And I don't see any huge need to change the entire CIP list. I see a need to add subsets into the various categories that we already have on the list. And that's what I would just recommend, is just that we add subsets to our CIP list, because then they're on there. We can work our way down through them. The state legislature can work their way through them, and but they're on our list. And I really appreciate the time that the city team and the manager put into the detail that they added for us.
Okay, and maybe I'm getting a little off a track because there was a motion to amend and a second, and maybe we should discuss those and just follow order on each item so we aren't bouncing around too much. But so Councilman Sherman, were you kind of alluding to, are you including that? I guess you're speaking in favor of having sub-bulleted items under these main categories?
Correct.
Okay, great. So I'll revert to discussion on the motion to amend to add that item 2A for a 6 Mile city water extension. And I don't know if that's what you're going to speak to, Councilman Schaefer, but Councilman Schaefer?
Sure, yeah, I could be in support of that amendment.
Okay. Councilman Allison?
No other questions on the amendment?
Okay. Any other discussion on that amendment to extend city water to 6 Mile as a sub-bullet? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Were you trying to add discussion on that before we voted, Councilman Guard, or?
I don't know that's needed.
Okay.
Need to direct that.
All right, thank you. Any opposed? Okay, the amendment carries. Further discussion on the main motion to approve the CIP list?
Councilman Schaefer?
Councilman Schaefer.
Hi, yeah, I was just gonna suggest that we remove the, under 1C, it says general upgrades for the harbor, and it includes like North Harbor sidewalks, glacial building, harbor grade. I was gonna suggest that we make a bullet point specifically for like the North Harbor upgrades, because I mean, that's gonna be its own huge project down the line too. So just to like emphasize that is separate from the other upgrades that are required.
Helen, City Manager Helen.
So if you go to page 20, which is the next page, there's headers with very specific projects underneath those. Perhaps the detail on page 19 is not sufficient, whereas the detail on page 20 might be more appropriate. I just ask if that is more along the lines of what you guys are looking at with the addition of the drinking water plant situation at 6 Mile, whether those might be substituted in on the page 19, and we'll just cut and paste those in.
So Councilman Schaefer, are you proposing an amendment?
I guess my question about, I mean, I do like the setup that we currently have, because we show like, you know, we are emphasizing our priorities. Whereas I guess I don't know who at the state is looking at this list, and if it would be, you know, too much to just have a bunch of bullet points, and if it's better to just emphasize a few. So that, I guess, up to the council to decide.
Councilman Sherman?
Councilman Sherman.
I was just going to say I agree with Ann, and that I think this detailed list is great for us but whatever's appropriate for submitting to the state is what we need to agree on. We have our details. Maybe it doesn't need to be this detailed to submit to the state. So I would defer to the manager for what needs to be on the list, but I really appreciate the detailed list.
Thank you, Councilman Sherman. And I think Councilman Baylor and Allison and long tenured city staff will know it's good to be both general and specific. If you have a general heading and then an opportunity comes up or a need comes up, then you've kind of got that large, like water system improvements. And but then it's also good to have some specific bullets for things that you know that you really are priorities, and you can go after specific funding. Both state and federal agencies really like to see as much planning and thought go into what a community needs before they put money on the table for it, both through your comprehensive planning and your capital improvements lists. And I guarantee that over the years, as you have a capital improvements plans that year after year after year after year, say the harbor needs improved, that does matter when you start talking to legislators in the governor's office. So I haven't heard requests for further amendments. Further discussion on the main motion as amended. Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, so the capital improvement project list is approved as amended. Next item is Resolution 03-22-04, which is a resolution of the Council of the City of Cordova, Alaska, authorizing the city manager to enter into a sole source contract with Solstice Alaska Consulting to provide consultation, documentation, and permitting for National Environmental Protection Act, NEPA, also known as NEPA Act, U.S. Endangered Species Act, ESA, biological assessment, and multiple incident harassment authorization permits for the South Harbor Rebuild Project.
So move.
Second, Sherman.
Have a motion, Allison, and second, Sherman, to your motion, Councilman Allison.
Yeah, can we get another report from staff?
Yes, Sam?
Okay, so I've been talking about NEPA a lot. I know more about NEPA now than I did 6 weeks ago. So in order to sign a grant agreement with RAISE, we have to have these NEPA actions completed. So this is through the federal government, it's through NIMS, Fish and Wildlife, and RAISE has their own environmental document that you have to do for them, along with the Threatened Endangered Species Act. So we need to start doing this right now. And there's a lot of background things that you can do because, you know, you have to talk about where the sea lions live and how they interact in the harbor and these kinds of things. And you can start consulting with the agencies. When the geotech and the design, the contract that was previously approved and the design build contract comes together, we'll have a better idea of what size piles we need, which this all impacts the NEPA decisions. How we're going to drive them, how far down they're going to drive, how many days it's going to take to drive them, how many we can drive in a day. You know, all these, how much pounding will we be doing? So all these different things that affect the species. So right now we need Robin is the person we work with at Solstice. Don't try to say Solstice and not Robin, but Solstice to move forward and get this preliminary work moving. And as soon, she'll be talking to the geotech person tomorrow. We have to get environmental approval to even do the geotech, but it's a nationwide permit. We can have a discussion with Fish and Wildlife about it, but it's a much smaller, simpler process. So she'll be doing that as well. But she will also be talking with the designer, and they'll start talking about what it looks like for piles, what it looks like for drive times, what, all these things that can affect them. So that's why we're doing this now. And we can't even raise money until this is completed.
What a racket. I thought the engineers were expensive.
It is a lot of paperwork, and it's a lot of coordinating and pushing and getting your name to the top of the list. It's a tough job.
Discussion, council, questions for staff?
Councilman Sherman.
Councilman Sherman, and then I heard another behind that, Councilman Meyer-Schaefer, but go ahead, Councilman Sherman.
I was just going to say that I have had some experience with NEPA in the past, both with the Historical Society and with Cordova Center, and it is an incredibly important step that we need to make sure we do, and all funding relies on this. And so, it is time consuming, and I can't see a better expenditure of money than having someone else do this for us. So I'm all in favor of it.
Okay, sounds like comments in favor. And I'm sorry, was that Councilman Schaefer or Meyer that was trying to comment?
Councilman Schaefer.
Yes, Councilman Schaefer.
Yeah, so I was just wondering, so the rationale for the sole source contracting is really as like a time efficiency situation?
Correct. Robin Solstice has been helping us since we put the grant application in. She helped us with the, well, we didn't have much for NEPA when we put the grant application in, but she helped us understand what we needed and, what the steps would be that we would move forward. She knows the project. And so there's that. She's already working with the race folks on Section 106, which is a SHPO historic part of NEPA. Well, it's not part of NEPA, but it's part of the federal government required paperwork. And so, yeah, it's efficiency and continuity. She knows what's going on. We can just keep moving forward. And she's already has contacts within the agencies for this project.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Sam. You had also, I'm sorry, you'd mentioned that before,
It's okay.
Knowledge of the project and that they've been working on it too. So thank you.
Further discussion, council?
I guess I would just ask, is this the only outfit that does this kind of stuff?
Nope.
Is this but this is the one that we're going after?
Yep, because of the continuity of having that person who's been involved in the project from the beginning. She's already done a lot of background work when we were working on the EDA application. They have their own environmental form, and we had that pretty much completed. So a lot of that can just go right into that. If somebody else was doing it, they'd have to redo all that work. So it's just about efficiency and moving forward. I know it seems like a lot of money, but if you spent 2 hours,
$1 million, yeah.
well, if you spent 2 hours listening to the requirements of NEPA, you'd be like, okay.
Now I have to deal with the feds. I know exactly how they operate.
Further discussion, council? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? A motion carries. Resolution, next item is Resolution 03-22-05, and this is a resolution of the Council of the City of Cordova, Alaska, adopting the 2022 land disposal maps.
So move.
I'll second. Councilman Schaefer?
Have a motion, Allison, second Schaefer. To your motion, Councilman Allison.
Yeah, I didn't see a whole lot of changes in here. The Planning and Zoning Commission has reviewed it. You've heard my speech a few times if you've been on council long or paying attention very long. This, you know, it's all for sale if you ask me, for the right price. So anyway, I'll go with what the Planning Commission said. I don't have any particular things to modify, so.
Discussion to your second, Councilman Schaefer. Further discussion, Council?
Says Council Baylor.
Yeah, Councilman Baylor.
On page 30, first paragraph, last sentence says, any of these lots may have conditions or special criteria that must be met. I've been a champion, and I think any residential lot that we have left should be set aside for building residential houses, not garages, not boat storage. And we've had this discussion, and we've had planning and zoning move forward sales that were going to be used for just that. We've turned them down, we've sent it back. I'm wondering if we didn't put some wording in this available part or someplace in here to give planning and zoning some written notice that residential lot will be sold only for residential houses.
Are you proposing that as a modification, Tom, or?
Yes, I would like to see something in there. You know, all of the candidates that were running for council, and we've been talking about it, there's a housing shortage, and I think it's just totally irresponsible that we would even consider selling a buildable lot for a warehouse. So I don't have the wording, and I'm on the phone. Maybe somebody could help me out there if they agree with it.
Is there a time, is this time critical? Could it be referred back to staff to?
I'm going to defer to Kevin. Kevin, our planner's here, is able to answer any questions that you might have, but he can speak a little bit to the process.
There's nothing in the code that says that we have to have it done by a certain date. It just needs to be done annually. I would, if you want me to take a look and come up with some language for that, I could see about whether it'd be more appropriate to put it in this document or actually if it should be codified as part of the land disposal code update that I was directed to do, which will be coming to you here in the next couple months once it goes through Planning Commission.
I was just wondering that very thing, if it wouldn't be, that guidance wouldn't be better in the code itself.
This is more of a administrative document.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
exactly. Did you follow that, Councilman Baylor? It sounds like there's going to be a revisions suggested to the actual title. What is it, 16 or?
It's 5.15, I believe.
5.15, and it could be addressed there actually in the city code, which would be have more weight, I guess, than this document.
Well, I would agree with that. So I would suggest that we refer this back to staff and then bring both of those items back at the same time, since this is not time sensitive.
Okay. Here, a motion to refer to staff.
Councilmember Meyer, I would second that motion.
Okay, have a motion, a second. Kevin?
Just before it's referred back to staff, is there any other comments about the document before we close it up?
So anything else to include, council, if you're going to refer it back to staff? Councilman Allison?
I guess, since you asked for comments, I guess my only comment on it is that, yeah, this is an administrative document and I consider it a guideline more than law. So if we really want to lock us into making these residential lots housing only, then putting in the code is the only thing that makes it a law for that matter. So I guess my question is, do we really want to lock us into that one use? And even then, it's not locked in. You know, we can change the code again if we needed to, if some big project came up that we really wanted to do. So I guess this whole land use thing, I don't think about it much, I guess, because again, everything in Cordova is for sale at the right price. So, and for the right project. So anyway, that's just my comment. If we're gonna lock it in, then it needs to be codified in the code. This document doesn't do that much for us.
Mm-hmm. Another suggestion, maybe, Kevin, is sometimes could have a workshop before, like between now and 2 or 3 months out to, and that's a good way to have council have some time to think about it and bring forward anything. And I say that because I know there's been a lot of items that have come up in the land disposal over the years. It seems to be the biggest area of conflict, actually. So, okay, so we have a motion and a second to refer back.
With the
This is Councilman Schaefer.
Okay, Councilman Baylor, then Schaefer.
On the Ocean Dock subdivision, it appears that the water tower is on the unavailable or not available. I thought that was leased. Why would the city have that on there?
That is correct. That was pointed out by Planning Commission, and apparently I included the page that went to Planning Commission and not the updated page. So yes, that is actually should be removed from that page. I will ensure that you get the correct page next time.
Okay, not a big deal. I was just curious.
Councilman Schaefer?
I guess I just have 2 comments. One is that if none of us have comments or suggestions on the actual maps, I'd be more inclined to just vote them through tonight than refer them to staff. And then as far as the change to code, I tend to agree with Councilman Allison in that I would hesitate to use words like will only be used or only, and say instead that like preference may be given for priority will be given to residential structures versus that like this area is only for residential structures, because like Councilman Allison said, you can't really predict the future.
Okay. And that could be addressed when council actually takes up a code change. So, but I see Kevin's here taking notes. Councilman Schaefer, so. Further discussion, council?
This is Councilmember Meyer.
Councilman Meyer.
Yeah, on the motion to refer this back to staff, I kind of just think that it would be best to, if it's not time sensitive, like Councilmember Baylor said, that if we look at on the side of that, we can get a map with the correct coloring code. And also with this land disposal map, I think this would be a good location for the flow chart for the general public when they're looking at the land disposal map, that they can also have the process of how to go about putting in a proposal or anything about how the process works for land disposal. So that's what I would like to see when it comes back, or if it goes to staff and comes back.
Thank you, Councilmember Meyer, and for that reminder. I think Council had mentioned that before, suggested it kind of a flow chart. Any further discussion on the motion to refer? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 And opposed? The motion carries. So the land disposal maps, and I thought we talked about changing that term from disposal to something else less discarding. So unfinished business, we don't have any on the agenda. New and miscellaneous business, council approve of ARPA funds, the capital spending plan. Councilman Allison?
Yeah, to get us talking about this, I will move that we approve the capital spending plan for the ARPA funds as laid out in page 44 of our packet.
I'll second. Councilmember Schaefer.
Okay, have a motion, Allison, second Schaefer. To your motion, Councilman Allison?
Yeah, I think department heads have all gone through this. Maybe the manager should just give a report first, but I don't see all of the 1, 2, and 3 projects are not in that column that says priority 1 through 3, correct? None of the pool ones were on there, none of the, I don't know, there was a whole bunch of them there that weren't subtotaled out there anyway. But anyway, you can see on that page how they're lined up, and I guess maybe I'd like to hear what the manager has to say about the list.
Sure. So as I mentioned at the last council meeting, the day before the last council meeting, I got a notice, which is on page 45, basically announcing that an allocation had been made to all small governments in the state of Alaska, through the state of Alaska with federal funding. And there was a calculus that was put together. You'll see it on page 48. The communities that were awarded these funds, they had $50 million to distribute. And City of Cordova received $666,505.32. And just got an announcement yesterday that we have received another $1,800 that is being allocated from cities that chose not to accept the funds. So we've basically got around $670,000 to spend. These funds are part of the fiscal recovery funds. They are intended to replace revenue with city governments who incurred revenue losses during the COVID years of 2020 and 2021. And as I said, there was a formula used to calculate the amount that would be distributed. We have a requirement that 30 days after the date of this letter, so February 15th to March 15th, we have a conversation about how we're going to utilize those funds, and we have to notify the state by March 15th a spending plan. We have 2 years to expend the funds, and the good news is that it's fairly flexible, but they have specific targeted areas that they would like us to focus on. In chatting with department heads, one of the things that they've been anxiously anticipating is that since we've not had any small capital funds available and have not budgeted, and certainly didn't budget in 2022, that there are some real needs for departments to have equipment and other upgrades that will allow them to do their work. So each department was given the opportunity to go through and identify things that they needed, research out the costs, and then prioritize them. The spreadsheet on page 44 outlines department priorities, the items, and then through conversations with department heads and understanding we couldn't fund, even remotely fund everything on the list, we made some adjustments and came up with the list in front of you. There's equipment of $339,000 and change, improvements of about $103,000 and change to facilities. Then we have design and engineering and professional services. And I want to explain that line a little bit. We own facilities, and many of them have not had any real attention and care for a while. But one of the things that every one of these facilities needs is some identification of the problems that exist and how they can be fixed. Everyone seemed to have a design, professional services, engineering line on their requests. And we thought it would be more cost effective to combine all of those requests into a single contract that would allow us to review and hopefully gain some cost savings, review all of our buildings and understand what the deficiencies are and how, what kind of investments will be needed to bring them up to date and repair. So that is the design engineering professional services line. And then there's vehicles, there's 2 vehicles that are requested of around $200,000 or so. Under grants, we fully anticipate we can get grants for the skaters cabin, for repair work there, and department, refuse department said that they could contribute $75,000 towards a hook truck. So we can accomplish those items within the budget of $666,000 and really take care of some really critical issues for some of our departments. So it is indeed true that there are some number 1 priorities that aren't going to be funded through this particular grant because of the size and the amount of money that we have available. And some of them were, this is a priority, but we could do it in a subsequent year kind of approach. So again, this has been fully vetted by department heads. The genesis of the list came from department heads, and the costs were researched by those department heads. So I feel reasonably good about this list. That said, there are 2 questions in front of council is, do you agree that you want to spend this money in this way? And are there other projects within these lists that you would prefer to see funded and raised to a higher level and adjustments made to the list?
A discussion, council? Councilman Allison?
So the department money, that $75,000 for that hook truck, you're not intending to use that department money, is that correct?
No, it's being used. So if you'll notice, the full cost of all of those rated projects is $777.
Okay, I see.
And yeah, we're dropping it down by 115.
Okay, I understand. I got you.
Councilman Baylor.
Councilman Baylor.
Yeah, one of the things I don't see on the list, and I think it had council support as well as community support, and that was to get the wrecked vehicles, the impound lot, fenced in with cameras and get the junk cars out of in front of City Hall. So I'm just curious on where that's at. I know we wanted to do it, we just couldn't come up with the money that year.
Right.
It is on the list, and again, department heads and their staff prioritize the projects that they felt would be most important to their department's functioning, and the impound lot fence is number 5 on their list, $100,000, so they were looking to fund higher priorities. And it's under improvements, about the 3rd group of projects there.
You see,
Yes, I'm not seeing it under improvements.
so under improvements, Tom, there's three large groupings. If you go clear to it's a third from the last under improvements there. It's just says impound lot fence for $100,000 public safety.
Thank you. I just saw it.
Yeah, but again, it's not being funded with these funds.
Correct. I think one of the things that department heads were looking at is these larger projects that absorbed a lot of the money that would be available. They could knock off a number of smaller projects that would have greater impact on their department's functioning.
Further discussion, council?
This is Councilman Schaefer.
Councilman Schaefer?
I'm sorry, you did mention this, but just to make sure I understand, under that design, engineering, professional services umbrella, are all of those projects, like the $130,000 potentially would cover the assessment for all of those projects, or just the ones build 1, 2, and 3?
No, I'm hoping they will cover all of those.
Okay.
And again, the priorities 1, 2, and 3 are the priorities of the departments. So just because it's a 1 doesn't mean it's the entire city's priority. It's the department's priority. I just want to be clear about that. Not that it isn't the city's priority, but it is critical from each of the department heads that these are the sorts of things that could really make a difference to their department.
Further discussion, council?
Councilman Sherman?
Councilman Sherman?
So I just wanted to commend the city manager for this work and the department heads, because it's really useful to see the rankings. And I'm in favor of this, and this accomplishes a lot of what we had set as goals as council when we finalized our budget, because we're supporting Parks and Rec, we're supporting things that need to be done that have been neglected. And I am in favor of this 100%. And it's really nice to see this breakdown. And as a former city employee, I am just impressed with the fact that the manager has really reached out to city department heads and asked for their opinion. So I'm all in favor.
Sounds like support for the motion. Any other discussion, council? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next item is pending agenda, CIP list, calendar, elected and appointed officials list. I just approved the CIP list and made a small amendment. Pending agenda, there's some discussion about an item for the next agenda for moving permanent fund earnings back into the permanent fund. And that can just be added to it would be added to the next agenda. It wouldn't be the pending agenda. So any pending agenda items? Then elected and appointed officials lists. I just remind after the election that we still do have a vacancy on the Cordova Community Medical Center Authority Board. So I'm sure there's a process for expressing interest in being appointed, I would imagine, to that vacancy. So I encourage folks to consider serving in that capacity.
I'd like to go back to pending agenda.
Councilman Baylor.
Yeah, I don't know if there's support for it, but I'd like to put on to the next agenda a discussion for RFP for legal advice for the harbor renovation.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Okay, we could put it on the agenda. That's kind of time specific, Councilman Baylor. Would you like that on the next agenda?
Yeah, that would be my preference since we're already moving forward with stuff.
Okay. I've heard two councils, so we can just put it on the March 16th agenda. Helen?
I just want to, if anyone has any specific request of staff for the types of information you're looking for to help you with that decision, or if you're just going to have a general conversation about that. But if there's something specific you need staff to provide, do let me know.
Mr. Mayor?
I would love to have the recommendations from our project manager of who we worked with.
Councilman Ellison?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. If the manager can sit down with Mark, I think that's his name, yeah. Mark is the project manager that we're looking at, and talk to him about it. And maybe he's comfortable with our attorneys and who they're willing to do. And if, you know, I would like his comments on attorneys, and if he thinks that we should get specialized attorneys, then I think we need to have the discussion and get that going as soon as we can. But if his opinion is that the attorneys we got are good and he's worked with that particular department before, then I think the discussion can go that way. But I would like to, before we discuss it at council, have the manager have a chat with Mark about attorneys and what his thoughts are on that, and bring that to the discussion.
Just a little clarification on that. So are you asking just for the contract? The development of the contract? Or are you asking for the entire project? Two very, very different things. So I just want to clarify. Please.
I think it's a project.
It was actually Mark.
Go ahead, Tom.
Okay. It was actually Mark that brought it up, that it was very important that you get the proper legal advice when you write these contracts.
Right.
So that was his statement. That's not something I brought in. So I think having that discussion with Mark will give you the direction that you need.
Okay. Yep. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, anything else there, council? Okay, audience participation. Anyone in the audience like to speak? Okay, seeing none. Council comments. I'll start online. Councilman Meyer. Councilmember Meyer.
Yeah, thank you to the city manager for all the information in this packet. I really did appreciate all of the spreadsheets and priorities of things. I thought it was filled with a lot of good information. And thanks to all the city staff that's been working really hard, especially on the harbor rebuild project. I can't imagine how much work is going into all of it. So just thank you, and thanks everyone. And thank you to the community for turning out really high numbers on the election. I think that's really important.
Hey, Councilmember Schaefer.
My comments are the same as Council Member Meyer. Just thank you to staff and the city manager for the putting the pack together and all the time and effort that went into it. And then a big thank you to the community for the great turnout. That's awesome. And I hope we see similar engagement in future elections and then also at council meetings and throughout the year. So thanks, everyone.
Councilmember Baylor?
Yeah, I would echo those two comments and also thank all of those that ran for office. Without volunteers, we don't get anything done. So we really appreciate those that ran.
Councilmember Sherman?
Thank you, Mayor Copeland. I just wanted to say I'm really impressed with the package today, the manager's report. I really appreciated the CIP list and the detail. That hasn't happened before that I've ever seen. And it really helps me to make some informed decisions. And I'm glad that she incorporated staff and department heads' opinions. And I think I want to just continue to give kudos to Helen, our city manager, for listening, for her listening ability, and you know that you need to have patience, but I think there's so much progress happening, and it's so encouraging and so exciting, and I'm looking forward to the coming year. And I was extremely, I know I'm far away right now, and I think that my absentee ballot is still to be counted, but I am so happy that there was such great voter turnout in our community. I mean, I think that is just outstanding that our community appreciates the ability to vote in the democracy, which that's really great. So I'm good, and thank you for everyone.
Okay, Councilman Guard.
I think everybody before me said it all already, so I'll echo that. Limit my comments to that.
Okay, Councilman Allison.
Yeah, I can repeat most of that, I guess, thanks to staff and especially to Tony, Sam, and Curtis and the manager for the work on that harbor project. It's coming a lot faster than we thought it might be coming, and hopefully we can get all the permitting and everything. Perhaps, yeah, I'm sure you guys have thought of it before already, but maybe now that we passed the $2 million loan thing with such overwhelming support by the community, maybe we can leverage that for other money somewhere else. We're spending our own money. You know, it's borrowed money, but it's still our own money ultimately, and maybe we can convince some people that we put another $2 million in. Maybe they can throw another 10 in. See if we can't leverage that somehow. Thanks again to the community for coming out and voting. I too hope that they stay engaged throughout the year, and we see more faces here at the council chambers and at the school board and the health services board for that matter. And we need to get somebody out there that's interested in health services and continuing that service to the community needs to put their name in. All of these are volunteer, and appreciate all the volunteers who put their name in and want to put times in, and not only to the volunteers but to their families. A lot of times it's a sacrifice for the entire family, so I appreciate that sacrifice everybody's been making. And March 16th we'll find out the results, so thanks everybody for coming out.
Councilman Gleason.
Yeah, just thanks Sam and Curtis for being available for questions, and your report, Sam, was what I needed to hear. And thanks, Helen, for all your hard work. I would make one comment on the harbor. project. I've heard it mentioned several times about trying to save money, so we're sticking electrical and docks in the worst environment possible. So I'm not a fan of, I mean, we're obviously going to run out of money before we're done, but I'm not a fan of cutting costs. We need something that's going to last for 30 years. So thanks to the state giving us the harbor, now we've got it. And tonight we saw how expensive 2 little line items were. So we're just going to have to spend the money until we don't have any more and stop. You know, that's how it's going to have to work, but it's got to, whatever we do has got to last for 30 years. So, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Counsel. And so before we go into executive session, I emailed 4 of you online summaries of the clerk's and manager's evaluation. Councilmember Meyer, I didn't email them to you. I'm emailing them right now from my laptop, so you'll get those in just a minute. And after we, we'll just take a short recess before we go into executive session, or call executive session, then we'll take a short recess to clear the room and so forth.
Should do these one by one or together?
We're not going to be in, right?
No.
So you could do them together.
Yeah, we could do them together.
Okay, move to go into executive session to discuss the city manager and the clerk's evaluations, matters of immediate knowledge, or I guess it would be because it is a subject that may prejudice the reputation or character of a person may request a public discussion. And I'm assuming both of them want it in executive session.
Correct.
Okay. And I'm sorry, did I hear a second?
Second.
A second, Gleason?
Second, Shirley.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Way more fun
Aye.
talking to you guys.
Okay, so we'll take a 5-minute recess, and when we come back, we'll be in executive session.
Could you please email that to Councilman Baylor? I did not get them.